with American Songwriter, we had the opportunity to talk to Jesse Palter over Zoom video. Jesse Palter is a singer-songwriter and jazz musician who grew up in Detroit with a musical family. Jesse started writing music at 13 and was signed to a publishing deal at 15. Jesse talked to us about the legendary jazz clubs she's performed in, working with the Bass Brothers, who are known for producing the early Eminem albums, and how quarantine has helped push her to write and produce her new song, Better Days. You can also check out the video of Jesse Palter and myself on our Facebook page and YouTube channel at Bringing It Backwards, and make sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Bringing Back Pod.
We'd appreciate your support if you follow and subscribe to our podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts.
We're Bringing It Backwards with Jesse Palter.
Hello, how's it going?
Hi, it's going well. How are you?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for doing this.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I've been really excited about it.
Awesome. We are excited to have you. So our podcast is about your journey in music and how you got to where you are now.
Awesome.
Very
Awesome.
All right, Jesse, I did read, originally from Detroit, Michigan. Are you still living there?
Wait, sorry. Quick question for you. Are we already recording? Like, are we doing an introduction? Just so that I know.
Sorry. Yeah.
No worries.
We're already going. I just go, and then later we edit it.
Perfect.
Just because my wife and I will do an intro, and then it'll just kind of go into.
Love it. Okay, well then I'll get my recording voice on. Pardon that it took me I wasn't sure if we were going to go through the niceties before you hit record, but this is great.
Sorry, yeah, like I don't know.
No
I know
worries.
people usually go, okay, hey, our next guest, and then do this whole thing. You don't need to sit and listen to that.
Beautiful. All right, let's do it.
Right on, Jesse. So originally from Detroit.
Born and raised in a suburb of Detroit, Michigan. It was a really great place to grow up, especially pursuing a career in music. I mean, come on, it doesn't get any better than Detroit and Motown and the rich musical history.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel really proud and honored to have come from Detroit and definitely to have come up in the music community there.
Mm-hmm. And how did you get into music?
You know, I was always doing it. So the vocal cords are a muscle, like you can inherit it from a family member, like any other propensity towards anything.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandmother was a childhood prodigy opera singer. And so she was always doing music. She had a beautiful voice and grew up performing in a lot of the esteemed music venues in New York City. Mm-hmm. And then I sort of popped out singing, and my parents encouraged it. They were very supportive. They still are very supportive. My sister was musically inclined as well. So like our way of playing with each other when we were growing up was to put on shows in my grandmother's living room. And, you know, pretty much anytime anybody sat down in my family, I popped up and treated it as a stage. I was always doing it. And then my parents were like, well, I guess we should get her some formal music training. And, you know, I did the piano lessons thing from the time I was 7 and started doing community theater. And then that led to professional theater. And then I went to a middle school that specialized in the performing arts.
Oh, wow.
So I was surrounded by a bunch of other kids that were musically inclined as well.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was in middle school at around 13 years old, I found songwriting just sort of naturally as a way to express myself as a sensitive middle child in a suburb of Detroit. And once I found that as an outlet, everything really clicked for me and it was game over.
Okay. So you started writing that? What was the first song you wrote and you were like, okay, this is it. I'm ready to go.
The first one that I wrote, you know, it's so funny. I don't know if I've ever been asked that question before. I think it was called Uh-Oh, There Goes My Heart. And,
That's
you know, definitely doesn't have anything to do with the fact that Britney Spears' Oops, I Did It Again was a massive hit at the time. But and then I remember I also wrote another one called Creepin'. That was one of my earlier works as well that I did with the Bass brothers, Mark and Jeff Bass, who were very successful and well known in Detroit for having been a part of Eminem's earlier works.
Oh, wow. So you got a chance to work with them?
Yeah, they signed me when I was 14 to a production deal.
Oh my, okay, let's talk about that.
Sort of like,
how did that happen?
Yeah. So once I found songwriting, I was just like, how do I do this? I don't even know if I knew what that meant. And there's sort of like a beauty to that naivety. It's sort of like you just dive in and figure it out. And me being this hungry, young, green thing, I just started like reaching out through, I think, internet searches at the time via AOL. I mean, hilarious. And I first found a producer who was based in Nashville at the time by the name of Andrew Gold, who became one of my mentors. And Andrew was responsible for writing the theme song to the Golden Girls, Thank You for Being a Friend.
Oh my gosh.
He was also, yeah. I mean, you want to talk about like a hit song, like,
right?
You know, mailbox money for the rest of his life. It's like game over.
It's like the guy, the band, what do they call it? Wrote the Friends theme song. I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, that's another band that's like, it's like,
yeah.
Oh, I wrote the Friends theme song. Okay, you're right.
Sure, that can be the ticket. That can be the ticket. Yeah. So I found him when I was 13, and then we
just blind
worked
email.
On,
like how?
I blind emailed him.
Okay.
I honestly don't know, Fate. I mean, I don't know what I said in the email. I imagine that it would be horrifically embarrassing for me to read it now. I was extremely precocious, and because I didn't know any better, because I hadn't been jaded by, you know, years of being turned down by the music industry, I was just like, I'm going to do this thing, and there ain't no stopping me. And so I dove in head first, and I reached out, and I always loved words. I always loved writing. So I imagine I probably was able to put together some type of a compelling email, and obviously because it worked. And maybe he just thought it was hilarious that some 13-year-old from a suburb of Detroit was reaching out to him, asking him to songwrite and produce with her. And he really didn't have to respond to me at all, but he did. And he said, why don't we schedule a call? And we did. And maybe he wanted to see if I was a bot or if I was actually a human being behind the email. And I was. And he asked me if I would have my mom hold up the telephone for me to sing. And so I sang a very soulful rendition of Chestnuts Roasted on an Open Fire. For all I know, it's probably July. But that was my go-to song.
There you go.
The spirit moved me. A nice Jewish girl, you know. He said to my parents, he said, why don't you drive her out to Nashville and I'll produce her. And so we did. They loaded up my family in the car. Like I said, 3 kids. I'm a middle child of 3, and it's always been a family affair with my career for as long as I can remember, which, you know, they've been an integral part of my musical journey. Just having their support, I wouldn't be in the game if it wasn't for their encouragement and their support, and having my siblings, my brother, my younger brother, my older sister, be behind it was just massive, a massive importance to me. And so we all headed to Nashville, and then I did some songs. At this point?
You're young, right? Like 14, 13, 14?
Yeah, I was 13 when I worked with him.
Okay.
And so, and I went by the name of Jess E, Jess Big E. That was my stage name, you know. Hilarious. And so we did a few songs together, and then they started shopping me to labels. And that was sort of like my first taste at how the music industry works, which is definitely not my favorite part of pursuing a career as an artist.
Sure.
And after, you know, interacting with a few different labels that were interested, and then I ultimately went back to the drawing board because I felt that the sound wasn't right just yet. And that was around the time that I was introduced through an entertainment lawyer that I had gotten in touch with at the time, to Mark and Jeff Bass. And they are known as the Bass Brothers. And you know, like Jeff wrote and produced Lose Yourself, which is incredible.
Wow.
Also a
Jeez.
moneymaker.
Yeah, right.
Actually, Joe Biden just used it as, I think, on election day, as his like theme song for his
Wow.
campaign, which is incredible.
That's incredible.
Yeah, super incredible. So, and then the full circle story moment comes back. Like I get back to the Bass Brothers with my latest single, but so we'll get there.
Okay.
But so 14, 15 was working with the Bass Brothers back and forth from Burbank,
To
Los
Nashville?
Angeles.
Oh,
No,
LA.
to Detroit.
Okay.
So they had a studio in Detroit called 54 Sound that I did a lot of work out of. And then they also would bring me to Los Angeles, bring my family to Los Angeles. And we were writing and they were producing the music. And it was sort of really like my first opportunity to be in a big Hollywood studio and have the big
Sure.
Hollywood photo shoot with like, you know, one of the most incredible photographers still to this day that I've ever worked with. And it kind of like my first tasted a little bit of the glamour, which was
Sure.
a
That
fun
must have been
thing
exciting.
for a 14, 15-year-old to experience.
Yeah. You must have been that. Yeah, that must have been a pretty exciting experience for you. I mean, photo shoots and studios. I mean, you're kind of in it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was definitely in it. And little did I know, you know, I've been grinding it out all these years later. I'm not to tell you how old I am, but I will tell you that I'm certainly not 15 years old no more.
Neither am I.
It's been many years and it's been a grind and it's been a slow build. And it's, you know, looking back now, I can sort of see where some of the dots are connected and I can realize that it's one long climb and it's never ending, and you get to the top of the mountain and then you see that there's another mountain and you realize the journey has just begun. And that's really the pursuit of an artist's life,
Sure.
trying to chase the dream.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm grateful for all of it. I'm grateful for all of the experience and working with all those producers at such a young age really taught me a lot about building tracks, about writing and creating songs. And it was really sort of my first taste at a much more professional level of the recording industry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then that was in LA and in New York or Detroit, sorry, back and forth with that.
Exactly.
That was with the Bass Brothers.
Exactly. And
Okay.
then, and Eminem was at the height of his career at the time. So, and you want to talk about brilliance, true genius. I got to see it firsthand because he would leave his lyrics, his sketches on music stands that would be in the studio booth that I would be recording in. And so I'd walk in to record my vocal, and I'm sure that I'm probably one of the only people that has seen these scribbles because you would like, yeah, you would just see you could sort of like see the inner workings of his mind. And I remember I would try not to be sleuthy, but you kind of can't help it. And that guy is a total wordsmith. So that was really inspirational to me as well. And also was a reminder that every bit of the song matters. Like lyrics are very important to me. It's not just about the melody. It's not just about the harmonic component. I love lyrics and I love telling stories, and Eminem is a master at it, truly.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But he would get inspired at all hours of the day, and he was really their moneymaker, the Bass Brothers moneymaker, and I was their passion project and developing artists, and so he obviously took priority. And when he would call while I was in the studio recording, I would get the boot. And this went on for a while. This went on for a while, and me being like, again, young and having no idea the way things worked. I after a while was just like, you know what? Things aren't going as swiftly as I would like, and I'm ripe for the picking, and time is of the essence. And so I went back to the drawing board again with gratitude and respect for the Bass Brothers. But I at the time was really interested in improvisation and the language of improvisation and the sounds of jazz, in studying and learning more about Black American music. And so I ultimately wanted to be considered first and foremost, above all, a musician. I did not want to be a singer in front of a band. I wanted to be able to hang with the cats, as they say. I wanted to be able to talk with the musicians and be able to garner respect from them, standing in front of them. And so I went, again, back to the drawing board in the iteration of going to school for jazz and contemplative studies at University of Michigan School of Music.
Wow.
And so,
you were still young, right? When obviously when you're going back and forth with the Bass brothers, you still hadn't graduated from high school yet.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I remember the school was pretty supportive of me pursuing this career, and I was just so passionate about it. And they allowed me to make my 7th hour of classes in high school my hour where I would go to the studio, and I think they called it like a co-op or something. And I got credit because it was like getting real life experience of working as a professional. So
yeah, like an internship, so to speak.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. So I would go to the studio and I would record in my 7th hour every single day. And it was sort of a Hannah Montana moment where like I was very academically inclined as well. So my studies were important to me, and I was, studying and being studious during the day. And then I would go until the wee hours of the morning and write and record songs. That's cool experience.
That is cool. What about the other kids in your school? Were they envious of you?
I definitely felt it. I did. Mm-hmm. I kept it close to my chest. I didn't talk a lot about my dreams because I didn't want anybody to think that they were pipe dream. High school, middle school, such a weird time with other girls. Right. Everybody's lost and trying to find themselves. And I just always had this passion and this desire to do something big. And girls can be mean. And I felt it. I definitely felt it. I remember my best friend, still to this day, one of my best girlfriends, was really the first girlfriend that I had who I could dream big with. And she actually lives out in Los Angeles as well. And she is a producer in television, and she's now actually getting into production and podcasting, which is exciting.
Amazing,
but she's worked for Oprah, and she was always very pop culture oriented and into celebrity and into the biz. And so we met in my later high school years, and we sort of chased each other. She went to Chicago. I lived in Chicago for a bit. Then I came out to LA, and she moved out here and ultimately met her husband out here. And she was really my first girlfriend outside of my family that like I could talk about this stuff too, because girls were so mean. They would be like, "Oh, you're bragging. Oh, you think you're so cool. Sure. You get to leave for 7th hour and go to the studio." And I just never really felt I never really felt comfortable expressing my, deepest desires and dreams. They just,
why would you?
Exactly.
You're not in a safe environment. I mean, if they're just going to tell them, yeah, I'm doing all this great stuff, and they're just going to push it down.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean,
for sure.
It sounds like, like a lot of jealousy. I'm sure there were, you could say, I've been working with these producers that work with Eminem, and they're, I bet you there was a lot of like, oh yeah, right type thing too going on. I'm sure as well. So I just kept it quiet, put my head down and put in the work. And that's what's really important at the end of the day. For sure. And then you ended up going to school for music.
Yes. So I went to school in the jazz program at University of Michigan School of Music. And I'm grateful that I had that experience. And I spent a lot of time in a practice room and studying music theory and working on my scales and arpeggios and ensemble. And, I was, I learned a lot from my time at school, but the biggest thing that I learned is that the connections that you build with other musicians are some of the most important connections that you will form in the music industry, period. Because when your friends that make music with you are there for you, as a creative, if you love the process, at the end of the day, that's really all that matters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And with with getting into the, I like what you said where, you use it as like a networking, you're meeting people, other musicians that you're hanging with. I know I've talked to a lot of artists and stuff that have like, went to music school or like even Berklee School of Music and then ended up just leaving after a year because they found, a band that they were going to pursue. And because it's almost like the end result is, if you're going to attend something like that, is to be an artist, right?
Exactly. So I was a performance major, and I did leave school as well. I say that I left school to go to another school. What ended up happening is I started getting opportunities to perform at the local jazz clubs in Detroit. And I'm talking like the legendary, real deal, Eastern Market of Detroit jazz clubs where, the Funk Brothers and Marcus Belgrave, who's a legendary Detroit educator. He's no longer with us, but he was in Ray Charles' band.
Wow.
And he's just sort of like known as being one of the Detroit heroes, et cetera, et cetera. Like I started getting opportunities to play at the venues that they were played at. And I think, I had a ton of work to do. I looking back now, I can see really, I probably wasn't ready to get a steady gig, but the owners of the clubs took a chance on me, and maybe they thought I'd bring in a younger demographic, and they liked that I was really hungry and inspired and like very much a hard worker. And if we're going to sort of get back to that jealousy thing, when I started getting these opportunities, I went to some of the teachers that were higher up at the school. And I said, look, I've been in a practice room. I've been practicing. Like I can now scat over some of the most famous, well-known, hardest jazz standards in the Great American Songbook. And I've been putting in all the work, but I don't know how to get on the bandstand and like lead a band in a 4-hour gig. Like, I don't know how to pay them. I don't know how to, we haven't talked about talking to the audience. We haven't talked about building a set. Like I've been practicing my music fundamentals, but like, what about the in the trenches stuff? And I remember one of the teachers was like, you're a student. We're not going to help you. They were like, we're not going to help you with that right now. You're a student. You're meant to be in a practice room.
What?
And at the time, I had a talk with my parents, and I was like, I feel like I'm going to learn more from being on the bandstand than I'm going to learn from being in a practice room at this point. I had done it for 2 years. I really wanted to be a performer. I wanted to be an artist. And here somebody had given me the opportunity to have a steady Friday, Saturday gig at a legitimate club in Detroit. It's not even like it paid a ton of money, but what it did is it gave me the opportunity to build a following. It gave me the opportunity to get real life experience. It gave me the opportunity to learn on the job.
Right.
And, so I, after 2.5 years, left University of Michigan School of Music, and I went to what I say is the school of Mike Jellick. And Mike Jellick was a collaborator of mine, still is to this day, though he lives in Detroit and I live in Los Angeles. And we've at times in our careers gone separate ways and then found our way back together because we're a good pair. But he is a true mastermind of harmony. I mean, the guy has insane perfect pitch and total recall. And what he did is when we started working together, again, he must have seen a spark within me, and he decided that he wanted to become my teacher. And I feel eternally grateful for the work that he put into me, because he would sit with me at the piano all day long leading up to the gig. And he would explain harmony to me in a way that nobody had explained it to me before. He would work with me on building my jazz language, the language of jazz, of bebop, of jazz harmony. And we would eventually find our way to arranging together and writing songs together. And so he was paramount to my musical maturation. And we started what became known as the Jesse Palter Quartet together, and recorded my very first album together, which was sort of like a glorified demo. And he really helped me get to that place where I felt like I was considered, above all, first and foremost, a musician.
Mm-hmm. And what was that record you were talking about called?
Oh my God, do I really want to talk about it?
Oh.
It's so funny. I liken it to like looking back at.
Can I ask what I think it is? And see, is it beginning to see the light? Is that it?
It is.
Okay.
It is. Yeah,
I was confused when I was looking at your Spotify because of the gap in between. I'm like, and then I was reading and I thought you did. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
so that's the record, the first record you did.
Exactly. And a lot will make sense with that gap when you hear how things end up panning out. And I don't know if I'm being too long-winded here.
No, not at all. Continue on.
Okay, great. So we did Beginning to See the Light together. And really it started off as a demo. It really was a glorified demo. I mean, I went into the studio at the time. I was so young. I couldn't even probably drink in the clubs that I was performing at yet. And we just wanted to make a few demos so that I can then send them out to additional venues, because we were starting to build a following and some buzz in the Detroit area. And a lot of the places at the time would say, you need to send me a CD. And we want to hear you do your thing. So I wanted to record a demo, and then the creative juices were sort of flowing. And my manager at the time said, if you're cranking them out, why don't you just crank 10 of them out? And so Mike and I were co-arranging. He was doing also some independent arranging for me at the time. And we put together a vibe. And Ben Williams, who is an incredible bassist and one of my dearest friends in the music community to this day, played on it. He's gone on. He won the Monk competition of bass and has traveled the world playing with Pakistani, et cetera, et cetera.
Wow.
I'm super proud of him. He played bass on it, and Nate Wynn, a great drummer who has also gone on to have a fantastic career as a professional drummer out of the Detroit area, also played drums on it. So it was sort of a statement of these young kids that were really taking the music very seriously and working very hard. And I'm proud of it because of that. But, of course, it's like looking back at a high school picture where I had a mullet or something. It's like,
yeah, right.
Oh, I really did that. I showed up wearing that day. I've come a long way with my music, but we did it, and people related to it. It ended up winning a bunch of Detroit Music Awards, and that.
Yeah, I saw that. That's awesome.
And it afforded me the opportunity to get on the road. So I started doing some touring because of it, and.
Supporting, were you tell me about the tours that you got from that?
Yeah, so I was basically playing the domestic jazz clubs, Blue Note in New York and Dazzle in Denver, and
wow,
that record helped to get me into this wonderful program run by Christian McBride called the Jazz Aspen summer program, where he picks a few instrumentalists from all around the world, and it's a scholarship-based program. You get to work with the legends in the jazz world. And so I got to open up for Arturo Sandoval when I was at the Jazz Aspen summer program, and it was a great experience. I met some of my lifelong friends in the music world to this day. And other venues as well. But it definitely, that record got me on the road. And so I was really steeped in the jazz world at that point, and I was fulfilling that part of my musical passion. But then there was also the songwriting component that got a little bit lost when I spent so much time studying the standards of the Great American Songbook, which taught me so much and helped make me the songwriter that I am to this day and the composer that I am to this day. But I got a little bit away from it. And so I had this void in my heart that I needed to fill. But the only problem was that I was at this point stuck in this esoteric jazz cave where, if it's not John Coltrane or Annette Coleman, and if it doesn't have 5 billion notes in the chord, which is a huge exaggeration, then it wasn't hip enough.
Sure.
And so, around that time, I remember I was playing a gig in New York, and I was introduced through a friend to this pianist named Sam Barsh, who was billed to me as the funkiest white boy you'll ever hear, and I don't disagree. And we met up, and he also had a budding career in the jazz world at the time. And we sat down, we played a standard. We were just going to jam and chat, and, you know, two Jewish kids from the Midwest. He's from Chicago, I'm from Detroit. In the jazz world, like, we thought it would be good to connect. And after the first song that we played, he turned to me and he said, "Do you want to just write pop music?" And I was like, "Are you kidding me? This is what I've been waiting for." So we started writing music together, and we ultimately formed a band called Palter Ego, which also did a good amount of touring. And it definitely was my alter ego. So I was like one foot in the straight ahead jazz world, and then one foot in this Palter Ego world, which is like a mix of, you know, pop with a tinge of soul and jazz and electronic elements as well. And we were super indie, and that was sort of like my start at figuring out how to record myself in home studios and sing in closet and use like scissors to make percussive sounds. And, you know, everything was like super, super indie. And Sam is a huge part of my story as well. And that's ultimately what brought me to Los Angeles, was to pursue my project with Sam. And so if you look at my discography on the Jesse Palter page, you see this like gap from 2006 to 2019 or 2018, whatever it is. But there is stuff that I released as Palter Ego then, and I was definitely hustling that for a good long time. And I ultimately moved to Los Angeles and was pursuing, I still am, a career as a songwriter, not just for myself and my own projects, but also for other artists as well. And then also hustling and pushing and performing all over as Palter Ego with Sam Bareilles, and still doing jazz gigs to keep the lights on. And then I ultimately recorded an album that was all of my original jazz compositions that never ended up getting released because one record company was going to release it and didn't. And that was several, believe it or not, several years of time that went by in that whole negotiation / courtship. And then the record label that signed me in 2016 ultimately heard that album and heard the one crossover track on that album, a song called Hold My Hand, that I'd written when I was 21 about a friend of mine that was struggling with alcoholism. And it was sort of a self-soothing song for me and for my friend. And it was definitely the more crossover pop folk / jazz song on the record. The president of that record company that signed me said, "Can you give me an entire record of this?" And so what ended up happening is this record that I had just recorded, that was all of my original compositions, never got released, and I ended up getting signed. And that's when I dove headfirst into writing Paper Trail.
Okay.
And I wrote Paper Trail and then got shelved for 2.5 years from that record company, where I was literally just sitting on ice waiting to see if my project was going to come out. And that was extremely soul crushing as an artist.
Yeah.
But it ultimately did come out. And I, worked that project pretty much up until COVID hit. And when COVID hit, I knew that things needed to change in my career. That the team that was surrounding me was not the right team to be working with me, and I wasn't being supported in the way that I need to. And so I sort of spent my early days in quarantine journaling and trying to get in touch with my gut. And ultimately, the long story shortened, because obviously there's definitely been stuff that has been left out, even though it has been long-winded because I have been pursuing this for so many years, is that I became an independent artist again. And I'm very excited about the path forward because I get to be all the things that I am, which is the jazz artist and the songwriter and the pop artist and all the iterations of me. It's like there are no rules. And I think that's it's kind of a cool time because of that. Like I'm willing to just try stuff out that feels right artistically and make mistakes along the way. And as long as it feels good, it's like, hell yeah. And so when I ultimately parted ways with my label, I wrote just for fun a song with, the Bass brothers. Here's the connecting the dots. The Bass brothers' son, Jake Bass, who also is a producer and came to a gig of mine when I was on the road in Detroit. And I reached out to him in quarantine and was like, "Do you want to try songwriting on Zoom?" And we did. And the first song that came out was Better Days.
Wow.
And so I was like, well, I can release it now, and it feels apropos to everything that's going on. And I think it's important for me to release it for myself because I wrote it in quarantine. I produced it in quarantine. I figured out how to do every step of it myself. And it was really a testament to my musician friends that played on the track being there for me and artists persevering in the face of adversity. And so it just felt like something that needed to be done. It felt like it needed to be out there. You know, as artists, we write a lot of material that ends up on a hard drive, and I didn't want this to be one of those songs. I said, it doesn't need to be. So I'm just going to put it out with no expectations and allow it to be a statement, my stamp on this moment in time.
Yeah, it looks like it's being, really well received as far as the streams on Spotify.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and I listened to the song too. It's a great song. That's crazy that it was produced
so much
by yourself. That's amazing. Written.
Thank you. Yeah,
just by you.
Yes, and I collaborated with Jake Bass on it.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was so funny. Like we would be texting each other while we were comping, bass parts at 12 a.m. Like it was a total quarantine hodgepodge. But it was a good opportunity for me to really express myself, even as a co-producer, and to experiment with getting sounds on my vocals in my highly untreated 750 square foot one-bedroom apartment while my husband and my dogs were locked in the other room so that we wouldn't get their barks in my takes. And so I was able to control every part of the process. And it's not that I'm a control freak at all, but after having my hands tied and tethered for as long as I did in my previous business situation, it felt important to me to be able to get some control back, to get in the driver's seat and to go. And that's why I wanted to do it as quickly as I did, because I don't want to give myself a chance to talk myself out of it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Just get it out.
So I just said, I'm just going to do it. I don't know what it's going to mean. I don't know if anybody's going to listen, but it feels right in my gut. And so I followed that. And it was probably 3 weeks of sleepless nights, and it's out now.
There, yeah. And with it, so is the solo career going to be like your main focus moving forward? Is Palter Ego done, or is it just you had to put it on pause due to, the state of the pandemic and all that?
Well, Palter Ego has never been done, except for the fact that Sam's career as a songwriter really took off. And so his time was best spent in the studio. Also, sonically, for a minute, we were sort of hearing different things and had gone in different directions. But like we come from such a similar place as artists that when he and I make music together, it's magic. And I think having been through what we've been through in both of our own unique artistic journeys, the fact that we can always come back together and create music the way that we do is really special to both of us. So we have been talking about some Palter Ego stuff. And we also are gearing up to do some live streams, and we're planning some releases. So definitely stay tuned for that.
Very cool.
And I'm extremely proud of what Sam has done with his career. And then I also have this jazz record that is unreleased that I've been sitting on, and that I'm probably speaking out of turn, but like, plug it. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this podcast.
Yeah, you can swear.
I sort of feel like, why not just put it out there for the people that have supported me along the way. Like I made that project with a Kickstarter, and I was able to raise $30,000 to do it.
Wow.
And then ultimately I got signed, and so I couldn't release that project. But, you know, who knows? I might at some point do it as a thank you to my fans. Mm-hmm. And that's definitely a straight ahead jazz project. And then I'm diving into my composing for new, more modern material as a jazz vocalist and band leader. And then there's also the singer-songwriter, and I just want to do all of it. Mm-hmm. So like, why not? You know, I've spent so much of my career with people trying to place me in a box and tell me the one thing that I need to be, or the one thing that I am, or the one thing that's going to sell. Mm-hmm. The fact of the matter is that I think the audience calls bullshit, and it's very easy to tell when something is authentic and when it isn't. Mm-hmm. And I always try and be authentic in everything that I can do, but I can tell you that I've allowed other people to tell me what I should be doing and who I should be, because I thought that that's part of it. And perhaps maybe it is. But at this point, after everything that I've been through, the reason that I'm still here standing and that I'm talking to you and that I'm still grinding it out as an artist and as a songwriter is because I do it for me. Mm-hmm. And because it's my outlet and it's my way of expressing myself. And because after I finish writing a song, it fills me up in a way like something else, like nothing else fills me up. It's addicting. It's like a drug or something. It's like, it feels like magic. The fact that you can create something out of nothing and it's your own. And it truly, I still, after all these years of doing it and composing hundreds upon hundreds of songs, I still don't even understand the process, and I just know that I'm obsessed with it. And that's what the people in the seats that are the gatekeepers can't take away from me, is my artistic expression, and they can't take away the process of creating art. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just trying to focus on the things that light me up. And if it's jazz, if it's pop, if it's Palter Ego, if it's writing kid songs, whatever the heck it is, I'm not trying to consume myself with thinking about what's going to sell. We have no idea what tomorrow brings. If this year has been a great teacher of anything, it's that. Sure. We have no idea the future of the music industry. Every single one of us is hurting, from the artists to the record companies to the venues to, it's affected everybody in the industry. And yet now more than ever, we need artists to do what we do best, which is to alchemize these horrific life experiences and spin them into self-expression and statements of the time. And so I think it's a very important time, and it feels like my time, my way of being of service in this time is to create art. And so I think it's just about getting back to what feels like the most Jessie stuff possible. Mm-hmm. And on a lot of things, I'm not one thing. And I kind of, at this point in my career, don't care if it makes me look like I don't know what I'm doing, because none of us do. And as long as it feels right and it feels like I'm being true to myself, then I think I'll find my way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. Definitely. And when you're talking about, like, I want to go back a little bit here. You're talking about live streaming. Have you done any live streams yet?
I did one for Scholars, which is a legendary jazz venue in Boston. Mm-hmm. And it was actually my Scholars debut, which I never would have imagined would have been virtual. And it was a nightmare trying to figure out the sound, and terrifying, and also really fun. And it felt great to sing again. I actually did it with Sam, my partner in Palter Ego, and we were stressed out just trying to dial in the sound. So I have to do it again now that I've gotten the cobwebs off. I'm like, oh no, now we got to do it again. We got to get back up on the saddle. We got to get it right. So yeah, I think we're planning on doing one in a couple of weeks. I'm going to announce it when we lock in the date on my Instagram at Jesse Palter, and my Facebook at Jesse Palter, and Twitter at Jesse Palter. I'll be announcing it. I'm pretty easy to track down on the internet. So,
Nice.
yeah, I gotta do it again. And
Yeah.
you know, it's weird. Like, it's weird to stare into your camera and think of other people on the other side, like listening probably through, you know, either broken, yeah, like who knows how they're hearing it
or something.
exactly. But it feels very fulfilling to be able to sing again, and it's a good opportunity to keep my muscles as warm as it possibly can. And it's such a crazy time for a singer.
Yeah. With the live performance, you said you were able to do the performance with Sam. Was he in the same room and like playing an instrument? Like how did you guys do it?
Yeah. So I got COVID tested before. I'm a huge hypochondriac, so I take it very seriously. And I also love getting tested and love getting that negative result. Knock wood, that continues. And then, so we did this safely as possible. And it was my first time seeing him. This was, I think, like a month and a half ago or something. It was my first time seeing him since March.
Wow.
The last gig that I did before we sheltered in place was with Sam at a place that I've played for 9 years in downtown Los Angeles called Perch.
Okay.
And so I hadn't seen him for many, many months. And it was my first time in the room with another musician playing music. And it felt great. It's just that the technology of it all was confusing. And so we got to do that again. We were definitely going to do it again. It's in a couple of weeks. I now live in a place where I have my own room for a studio, which is a huge life upgrade. And so there's going to be a lot of creating going on in this room. I feel it. I'm sitting here talking to you now. It's great energy. It's inspiring. It makes me want to write songs. And so we'll definitely live stream from here because the lighting is good. And I'm excited about it.
Amazing. And so are you going to continue to put music out just as a solo artist?
100%.
Like, I know that you did the one song in quarantine, but are we looking at like an EP, a record?
You know, I don't have a plan. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have a plan just yet, but yes, I'm releasing more music. Right now I have been really focused on, number one, getting the word out about Better Days. Number two, trying to use my voice to encourage my supporters to vote. And of course, I've been glued to my television for the last 3 days up until we had this interview. I think I'm in like the same pajamas for the last 3 days. I'm still in them. But so I've been honed in on that. I am going to be releasing an acoustic version of Better Days coming out soonish. And so that's a really pretty sort of softer rendition of it. And then I have other songs that I'm releasing as my singer-songwriter self. I will also be releasing jazz material in the future. And then Palter Ego is planning some stuff as well. So yes, lots of releases, lots of places to follow me. Everybody's got to follow me on Spotify and Apple Music and Amazon Music, and stay tuned.
Very cool. Thank you, Jessie, so much for talking with me today. I really appreciate it.
I'm so grateful. Thank you for being wonderful to chat with, and thanks for supporting artists and independent artists.
Yeah, we love it. I do have one more question. I know you've been pretty much dropping amazing knowledge and advice throughout this entire conversation, but our last question is always, do you have any advice for aspiring artists? Like I said, I know you've given a million answers. If you could condense it to one, maybe here. Yes.
I have a lot, and I almost don't even know where to begin.
Take your time.
Here's what I'll say. I'll say, find what lights you up and just dive into it. Just dive headfirst and don't stop. It's a numbers game. It's sort of the survival of the fittest, this industry. It's not about one big break per se. It's about the slow burn, the slow climb, the slow build. And if you stay around long enough, you'll meet really cool people that'll help lift you up. Really, for me, every single time I think about the most important people that I've met in my career, it's always been my fellow creators, the other musicians and songwriters and bandmates that I've played with along the way. So surround yourself with great creatives. And don't surround yourself with negativity. Do not do it. I've wasted years of my life surrounded by toxic energy of people telling me what I should or shouldn't be. And I always think that there's enough room in this industry for everybody to express themselves in the most honest versions of themselves. So find that and just go and don't stop and don't take no for an answer.